You are listening to New Theory Radio. Theory Radio.
Hello and welcome to another edition of New Theory Radio, here live on News Talk Saga 960 AM. My name is Nav Nanwa, I am your host, and this is the show where we theorize on arts and pop culture. Thank you very much for bringing us into your lives for another week. And we have a jam-packed show lined up for all of you as our pop culture panel looks at a number of different content-related things this week that definitely popped up in the world of arts and pop culture. But before I get into those topics, I got to let everyone know who we have lined up for the pop culture panel. I have the head of Jones & Jones Group, which is an organization that helps brands and companies manage their public image and create authentic connections and do a fantastic job in bringing together events and experiences. I have my good friend Jesse Jones on the pop culture panel this week, as well as modern Mississauga media's own Jay Kana. Jay is someone who's very much involved in the Mississauga community, does a great job with his platform Modern Mississauga and really showcasing a lot of different elements of Mississauga when it comes to arts, entertainment, culture, fashion, you name it. Jay does a fantastic job of bringing it to life. All three of us are going to be talking about a couple things. We're going to be talking about Quibi. Yes, Quibi is a short-form mobile content platform that launched in the beginning of April. And it just so happens that it came out this week that they lost almost 90% of their user base after the free trial period of the app had concluded, which is quite interesting when you think about it, considering that we are cooped up inside, we are around content quite regularly, we are glued to a screen, whether it be our laptop, whether it be our tablet, whether it be our smartphone, whether it be our TV. And you would think a service like Quibi would have no issues trying to really take advantage of the time that we have right now and really penetrate the content game. But it sounds like they had some challenges. So myself, Jesse, and Jay dissect that in greater detail. As well, we talk about a reboot that got announced this week. It sounds like The Wonder Years is coming back. And if you're not familiar with The Wonder Years, it starred Fred Savage. It was a very popular 80s sitcom coming-of-age style of show. And what's fascinating about The Wonder Years, or this reboot that's taking place, is that they're going to be rebooting it with a focus around the 1960s and a black family growing up in Alabama during the 1960s, which is quite interesting considering everything that's going on in the world. So I get both Jay and Jesse to chime in on that and whether they like the fact that old shows are being redone with different perspectives, or when it comes to producing new content, should we focus on more original ideas, more original storytelling? And then we continue our NTR Spotlight feature this week on New Theory Radio. And I'm very honored to be welcomed by musical prodigy William Leathers. William is an award-winning trumpet player who was recently the recipient of the prestigious Juilliard School Scholarship. And if you're not familiar with Juilliard, it is one of the most prestigious institutions when it comes to music, drama, art, and it's located in New York City. And William himself is from Mississauga. He's been a mainstay in the Mississauga community for quite some time. And not only do we talk to William about this wonderful accomplishment and just how he was able to get the community to rally behind him, because tuition for the Juilliard school is really expensive. And William was able to enable the community to help him out when it came to pursuing his dreams. And we talk about that. We talk about his influences growing up. We also talk about the fact that he's already played well-known venues like Carnegie Hall and the Lincoln Center. So William is definitely on his way to being one of the greats. And he's from Mississauga, which is fantastic. And then we will conclude this week's edition of New Theory Radio by welcoming Katie Belshaw, who is the Strategic Projects Coordinator for Culture Brampton. It was announced this week that the city of Brampton will be offering COVID-19 relief to artists and art organizations. I believe it's up to $1,000 that they'll be offering to artists, up to $15,000 that they'll be offering to art organizations. So Katie stops by to shed some light on that and how all that came about. All this and more on this week's edition of New Theory Radio, so I do thank you again for tuning in. We are going to take a quick commercial break, and then when we come back, it will be time for our pop culture panel on this week's edition of NTR. We'll be right back.
You are listening to New Theory Radio Pop Culture Panel.
We are back here on New Theory Radio, here live on News Talk, Saga 960 AM. My name is Nav Nanwa. I am your host, and this is the show where we theorize on arts and pop culture. And it is about that time for our pop culture panel, and we are joined by two amazing individuals this week, both from within the content world. I'm going to start with the person on my left. He is the owner and the creator of Modern Mississauga Media, which explores Mississauga through the lens of the 21st century. They cover everything from a uniquely Canadian perspective, whether it's culture, style, living, technology, arts, entertainment, and community. And they really aim to represent the diverse blend of interests and experiences from Canada's sixth largest city and beyond. It is my good friend, Jay Kana, joining us. Jay, thanks so much for being a part of this week's pop culture panel.
Thank you. And who wrote that amazing intro? Like, that person needs an award.
It was on your website, so whoever your copywriter is, shout outs to them. But yeah, thanks so much for being a part of this. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
And joining me on my right, he is the head of Jones & Jones Group. He helps brands and companies manage their public image and great authentic connections with their target audience through creative, lifestyle-based marketing strategies. He also has an extensive background working with a broad range of organizations like McDonald's, Uniqlo, Adidas, just to name a few. And he's also a creator. He is the executive producer and host of The Drive, a television series that was based on Global. And he's currently the host of Parked, which is a brand new Instagram live series that he's doing quite regularly. And I had the opportunity to be on an episode a few weeks ago. It is my good friend, 1081 Zone, Jesse Jones. Jesse, thanks so much for finally gracing New Theory Radio.
No, man, it's an honor. Thanks for having me, man. I'm looking forward to this.
You know what? When I put this panel together, I got really excited because I find that both of you have a lot of parallels and similarities when it comes to the work that you put together, both respectively with Jones & Jones and Modern Mississauga. And I thought the first topic that I want to tackle with the both of you, I felt was very relevant to both of your walks of life. And that has to do with the short-form mobile video content platform, Quibi. Now, Quibi launched actually in early April, and it made news this week because apparently it lost 90% of its early users after the free trials expired. Now, this to me is quite really interesting considering the fact that we're all stuck inside, we're all glued to screens, whether it's your phone, whether it's your laptop, whether it's your TV. And it seems like nowadays content is truly king, but a brand like Quibi not being able to retain users if you ask me, that seems like a bit of a problem. So maybe, Jesse, we'll begin with you. When you first heard about this, what was your thoughts? And if you were kind of working with the brand Quibi right now, what would you be telling them?
Oh man. All right. So I mean, so many things to say about this. I mean, first off, we're in the middle of probably one of the craziest things any of us have ever gone through in history.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
So let's just kind of preface that as we talk about content and like consumption of content during a time where people are losing jobs and losing family members and scared because of all of the temperature that's going on around what we're doing. And I only start there not to kind of be doom and gloom, but I start there to kind of like get a sense of, or give us all a sense of like what Quibi and other brands of any kind are trying to operate within, right?
Mm-hmm.
So for me, my first thought was just like, not only is there so much to watch these days, like there's just so much to consume, but then later on the pandemic and everything that's going on in this time where there was already a cluttered, kind of very busy marketplace for content. Throw in all the stuff that happened in the news, the way that that's affecting people and what they have time for. And I say all this because on our Instagrams and on our devices, we're getting really charged material these days, like stuff that's just sending us in different directions emotionally. So for at this time, I think people are going to their tried and true content, right? Because if you think about it, people are working from home, so we're on Zoom calls and we're on screens all day, and so what everybody's really kind of fighting for is that precious time when someone wants to chill out and actually consume on a screen what they want. I think those people are going to their tried and true streaming things that were platforms that were there for them leading up to this. It's a tough time to kind of break through, you know?
Yeah.
So those were my initial thoughts, like just off the top as it relates to this.
Yeah, and that's actually a point that some of the higher ups at Quibi were talking about, that they felt that because everybody was cooped inside, I think there was a feeling as if, okay, if we launch in April, we'll probably capture a lot of attention because people are cooped inside and are probably looking for different things to check out. But then all of a sudden, in this little article that came out talking about their retention rate being so low, they were now blaming the pandemic.
I think there's a fine line there, right?
Yeah.
You have to account for the emotional state of people.
Yeah. Yeah.
You have to account for that and their ability or just the appetite to receive stuff. Now, it's not like everything isn't being consumed. There are things that are winning during this time.
Yeah.
Right? But I think it's a touchy situation to kind of come out in this time as a new brand, right?
Yeah.
Look at the shelves at retail. The stuff that's moving are tried and true brands that people are like going back to and where they need to kind of hunker down. So again, like that was my first thought. I don't know, like Jay, what, you know, where your head's on it.
It's kind of like the David versus Goliath thing, because there's Netflix and there's Crave, and recently there's Disney that's come out.
Yeah.
And the reason I say the David versus Goliath, yes, be aspirational. And some of the best companies have originated in literal garages attached to houses.
Yeah.
But with something that is so widespread and, you know, you're battling for 30 seconds of screen time, let alone trying to convince somebody to go on your platform away from the Goliaths. And, you know, I know we're Davids, but we don't really have a lot, but we're new. Give us a chance. It's a pretty big uphill battle, and it just comes down to finances. And there's a very low chance that you will ever be able to outspend the Disneys and the Netflixes and the Craves. So I think it was inevitable, and you dangle the free carrot in front of people. Of course, they're going to say yes, try it out. But if the content's not there, they're going to walk away and go back to, like I said, the Netflixes and the Disneys that, yeah, they've got to pay for it, but, I'm a firm believer if you get what you pay for. And, like how many times have you gotten a gift card for Christmas and it's sat in your wallet or your purse or something and it's expired, right? Like, so if it's not,
it just stays there.
Top of mind and it's not on your radar.
That's an interesting point.
It's going to be forgotten. I speak from the David side of things because as I think one of the only independent media companies in Mississauga. Mm-hmm. When I started in 2015, I was up against the Mississauga News, who was owned by Torstar, Metroland, global or national company. So I knew this wasn't going to be easy. And then there's Mississauga. I think they're great at what they do. They have a massive reach and a massive following. So those were the two things that I had to go up against, and I knew I couldn't beat them because they're news based. They have a different model, but we're still competing for the same sets of eyeballs within the community. They want to know the best restaurants, the best new artists, the best new podcast, what's coming up, what's happening with the festival scene, who's headlining the Mississauga Waterfront Festival, why is Streetsville Square shut down? So, it's not always finances, it's strategic planning. So I work for myself, by myself, from my home. I've got a great team of freelance writers, but it's allocating funds and finding out the best way to get in touch with and, more importantly, retain your audience, right? Like if I write one great article a year, that's not going to do anyone any good because people will forget by, day 2 out of day 365. I think I read an article by some guy from some site. I don't know what it is because I only see it once a year. Mm-hmm. So consistency has a lot to do with it. And to make a very long point slightly longer, the problem these guys had is you can't go with free to begin with because it's nearly impossible to pedal back from free.
Yeah.
So it diminishes the value of your product. It shows people, yes, you have either have money or have a little bit of desperation to try and get people on board. And what's it going to be like once they are on board? Is there really a reason to stick around if you don't have any money up front? How's that, with no money, how are you going to get new content? How are you going to buy shows? How are you going to create shows?
Yeah, the streaming game is an interesting one right now because when you look at when Disney Plus arrived, obviously Disney had their entire roster of Disney classics and all the different properties that they owned. But with the article that I flipped you guys, or I think one of the articles that I read before, what was quite interesting was that Quibi didn't have that hit like Disney Plus outside of their plethora of movies. Like the Mandalorian was like the hit where everyone was like, hey, I need to get Disney Plus to see what the show is all about. Or, even services like Amazon Prime were able to do that with shows like, The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel or whatever. Like there was these franchises that made you want to check out and pay your money because people were buzzing about it. If you ask me, and I think all three of us, we're all pretty connected based on our jobs. I didn't hear about anything on Quibi that I needed to go check out.
Chrissy Teigen show.
Chrissy Teigen show?
I would see that somewhere. That was my way of hearing about Quibi.
Oh, really?
Going into it, yeah, she had some show, Chrissy's Court or something.
Yeah,
never looked at it, never checked it out, but I did see it cross somewhere on a timeline of some sort more than once. And that's how I heard about Quibi. And then you start kind of hearing it in different conversations. But I think it's really important to put into context here. Amazon Prime, Disney, these are, for Disney, first off, like every child, man. Every child grows up. It's like McDonald's, right? Like you need fries in Playland. Everyone thinks about Disney. As a parent, it is your life's dream to bring your child to Disneyland. So there's been years and years of brand buildup there where Disney can come out with kind of whatever they want within their lifestyle space and hit. Right?
Yeah.
Amazon is taking over everything, right? I mean, like the Amazon Prime. So, I mean, it's like, Quibi needed reasons, right? Needed reasons to convince, as you say, Jay, David and Goliath, right? That whole mix. And I don't know, like, I think that more of these platforms need to invest in in smaller ecosystems that are building digitally, right? So, for example, I don't know if you guys ever heard of that show Insecure that started, right? But then it built up, and then boom, I think it's HBO picked it up. Yeah. But it was a YouTube show, right? With and I feel like, these platforms, in order to stay in the loop on what's going on and to kind of like have a farm team of development and content, there should be tiers where it's like you've got AAA content under Netflix or where they're just developing and cooking up things. Some things are going to work, some things are not. And then you move it up to the big leagues, and because I think that keeps you in touch with kind of like what's going on and what's being built. The last thing is like, how much am I willing to pay for these platforms?
That's true. Yeah.
Because I got Apple Music, Tidal, Spotify, Disney Plus,
Netflix.
Right. And families are in the middle of a pandemic. Like, yeah, I'll try this out, Quibi, but are the shows that different than what I'm going to get on Netflix?
Yeah.
Are they that different?
It's a good point.
That what I can click on my Instagram and see for free. Is it that different? That's the one. Yeah.
No, I was gonna say, that's the one interesting part about their value prop was it was short form video, but we're already, to your point, Jesse, we're already getting that for free on social media, right? Like there's so much of this
in great ways, man.
In great ways,
comedians,
yeah.
Like influencers. It's funny because all the celebrities are going back to like social media. They're getting in the influencer space because no one can leave home.
Yeah.
But the influencers had their people from before.
Yeah.
You can't just kind of come into the space now and try to do Instagrammy things as a like Oscar winning actor. Like, you know what I mean? Like you didn't think this space was like for you. It was about the red carpets and the big media interviews.
Exactly.
So there's a whole game change here. And I just think like Quibi just didn't have enough of like they didn't give people enough of a reason. Again, David Goliath kind of thing, maybe.
Yeah.
And a lot of it's timing as well, right? Like Quibi came out in April, and April, May, June saw the wrap up of their free trial. But, coincidentally, that's when phase 1 and phase 2 started coming around. People got sick and tired of being cooped up all the time. And I don't have any official numbers as far as how many views are up or down on any of the streaming services, but driving through Port Credit on the weekends, I can tell you that people are just out, whether they're on patios, walking, or just standing in line to get ice cream. They just want to be out of their house because they've been kept there for so long with good reason. I think that we should have had a more severe lockdown, but that's for another episode. But people want to be outside. People don't like having their freedoms taken away from them. They understand why, but like when you couldn't even take your kids to go roller skating or whatever in an empty parking lot without getting a fine, it's a pretty far extreme. So now I think people are trying to recover some of that lost time by just being outside of the house. You can watch this stuff off your phone, but you're out to see friends and family that you haven't been able to see for almost 3 months on end. So I think the battle for clicks and eyeballs is that much more intense now because you're battling with the outdoors, which, yes, has always been here, but it hasn't really been here for the past 3 months.
It's definitely more meaningful now, too.
It's so funny, though, that you say that people want to be out in front of each other and hopefully like not using their phones as much, which go pre-pandemic, it was the exact reverse. Like you'd be out in front of people on your phone all the time. And now we want nothing more than to go in front of someone at 6 feet distance and have a beer.
It's like it's the 80s all over again, right?
No, for real. But like, feel that for a minute though. Like 3-4 months ago, you couldn't be sitting in front of someone without them like using their device or maybe like streaming the meeting and streaming the conversation or taking a picture of this. And I bet right now, if people said, hey, you can go out in front of your friends and do whatever you want, just leave your phone at home, people would be like, yep, no problem.
They'll be so into it, too. They'd be so into the conversation, the human interaction, because we haven't had it in so long.
So that I think is really interesting in terms of kind of where we are right now. It's hard. I don't ever like to give, too much life to the doom and gloom of pandemic. I like to speak about it in like terms of positivity.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what are we gaining from this? What are we learning from this? How, like, you know what I mean? And that to me is mind blowing, that over the course of 3-4 months, we want to do away with things that we were so attached to previously, and we want time and quality time with people when 4 months ago everyone was busy for that, too busy for that. So, it's interesting launching stuff during this time. Like, psychologically, we've been impacted, I think.
Do you guys feel that Quibi is a victim of screen fatigue?
100%.
Yep. Circle gets the square on that one. Absolutely. Right. Absolutely.
Yeah, because there's
so many things that came out. So and Nav and I were kind of just briefly discussing this when I jumped on. Right, like the pandemic gave way to plenty of opportunity and ambition for a lot of people that normally wouldn't have it, because to Jesse's point, it gave people time. Mm-hmm. Right, like the last 3 months have almost erased the last 10 years as far as communication and how we communicate goes.
Wow.
So screen fatigue. Massive thing, absolutely. And there's the rise of anyone with a phone can be a filmmaker, a podcaster, and anything they want to be. And live music, to kind of jump into Jesse's world for a bit, has been obliterated, and local venues are dying left, right, and center. The Rivoli's up for sale, and it's only $500,000, but like, it's worth way more than that.
Yeah.
So it's a really peculiar time, and people spending so much time trying to create the next big thing, I think, is a big contributor to the screen fatigue. They're like, okay, well, I tried this podcast for a month. It didn't catch on. I'm done. I'm going to be a little filmmaker with my iPhone and film waterfalls and what it's like being isolated. Oh, no one's catching on. Not going to work. I'm going to document my pandemic life and, how long it's been since I got a haircut. Oh, that didn't work, didn't catch on. And just insert any life event here, and it just adds to the screen fatigue, because you're not only trying to look for other things on screens, you're trying to pay attention to what your next big project may be on the screen. So you're doubling down on yourself, and I think people get burnt out very fast doing that.
The burnout thing is interesting too, and the screen fatigue. I've talked to many people about the increase in their Zoom meetings and stuff that they're doing during the day. Many, many times I'm hearing, oh man, my eyes hurt after. Or when I'm done with it, I see yellow spots and stuff like throughout the day. Because why? Well, because there's something coming out of the screen as you're doing this, right? Mm-hmm. So if you're doing it for 8 hours a day almost, or this Zoom meeting, that Zoom meeting, I wonder, like, how many companies are thinking about what the actual screen time and the amount of screen time is doing to their individual employees' eyesight, headaches, all these things that are going to be increased by this added time on screen. Are the education boards thinking about what this digital learning stuff on screen stuff is going to do to the kids' eyes before they even get to university or college? Like, here, it's this type of stuff that I think about when I'm like, another streaming platform, right? Look, at the end of the day, man, if we're not really, sorry guys, I'm like,
no worries, no. Do your thing, man. This is New Theory Radio.
Like at the end of the day, if we're not thinking about how our movements, our products, our offerings to the world are impacting everyday people in terms of how they use it, how it functions with everything else that they've got going on in their life, how it works within their 24-hour life cycle. If we're not like really, really listening to that, we're missing the mark.
Yeah.
Like, if you're trying to put something out because you want numbers of people to download it, and you're thinking like in terms of the money, we're in the middle of a time where people are shaken to the core.
Mm-hmm.
If you're not thinking about how what you're giving them or providing them is impacting them, then I think this is the time where you won't really hit, because like people don't have it. They don't have it. They actually don't have the capacity. They don't have the capacity to take on a new streaming service when they lost their job and they already got 10 to pay for already.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's an interesting dilemma.
It's the screen fatigue. Like, man, if I'm feeding you more screen time when you're like over screen, I don't know. It's an interesting time, and I think we have to start thinking differently. I looked at my Explorer page on Instagram. It doesn't look any different than it did 5 months ago.
No.
That's crazy to me.
Yeah.
Wow. How is Instagram the same in the middle of a time that has shaken the whole world down to its core? Why am I still seeing how am I still seeing the same lifestyle tone? Like nothing changed. It's like you look at your Instagram, it's like, oh, this could be 2019, could be 2018. Like people, like you feel me? Like, and then you go outside and you're like, oh shoot, no, it's not like that. That's
I think people are trying to hang on to the past because, and when I say the past, I mean February, January,
6 months ago.
And only because, it's the last real sense of normalcy that we had, right? So part of what I do for Modern Mississauga is I do some travel stuff. And in February, I was in the province of Quebec 3 times for 3 different events. And that's kind of what my January and February's always look like. Quebec's a huge draw in the winter. So when people initially heard about the pandemic, and there were the believers, and then there were the I think it's just the government hoax thing. I don't think it was until April that it really kicked in that, oh, this might be a game changer. And I think even there's something as simple as an Instagram story like, oh, I can't wait till I can get back on a white beach with clear water or do a safari or whatever their experiences are that they're used to. So I think that might be part of the thing on the social media side. And to go back about maybe 4 or 5 minutes to Jesse's point about, is there forward thinking about the health effects of some of these Zoom meetings? I don't think there is now. I think there's such an immediacy to recoup lost dollars and to try and adjust to a world where it's, you know what, I got to talk to Jesse. I'm going to get out of my desk, walk the 10 steps to his office, knock on the door, or, you know what, I'll see Nav in the in the lunchroom, in the gym or whatever. We don't have that anymore. So it's just trying to condense the old life of taking a few steps to seeing your faces to, okay, Zoom call, I can schedule you in from 6:05 to 6:18. I got a family call, I got a friend call, I got to talk to my this, my that, my other thing. So I agree that the health side should be looked at with a much more focused microscope, because what you do today impacts you tomorrow. And there's a reason our parents, because we're all the same age, our parents say, no, don't sit so close to the TV. I need you to be at least 6 feet away from it.
It's the reason why I have glasses, right? So,
so just
for sure, great points, man. Yeah,
it's trying to not lose any more productivity from a financial side from the workforce, because we're all battling for dollars, and there's no company, I think, except for the toilet paper companies in the early days, that are exempt against this.
You're right. You're right, and I think when you're in a for-profit kind of like space and you have shareholders to answer to, and big corporations, they're doing what they gotta do to keep the number up.
Actually, that's a great point.
But I think, go ahead, Nav.
No, I was gonna say, when you talk about numbers, Jesse, that's a great point in regards to just Quibi's whole launch plan, right? And again, we'll do a little bit of hypotheticals to kind of close this one out. But if you were at the helm of Quibi, and again, this launched in the beginning of April. We've been in pandemic since mid-March. Kind of seeing the way the world is going, and being that both of you are content providers, would you have launched at the same time, or would you have maybe waited?
Waited.
Yeah,
Absolutely waited.
100%. You wait that out, you know, for sure.
Because it's better to be right than rushed, right? Like I could put out, you know.
Ooh. I hope you take that. I hope you cut that one, Nav, and put that on social. Yo, I've never heard that. I like that. It's
because I could put you guys on pause for 60 seconds, whip up an article and post it. It'll be full of spelling mistakes. The numbers won't be accurate. They may not even be numbers. It could be pure speculation. Like, you won't believe what the counselor for your ward was doing at 11 o'clock at night. Like, yeah, he was sleeping, but it's creating buzz. And I think they rushed instead of waiting to be right. And now they're kind of circling the drain. And I think it's just a matter of weeks, if not, a matter of months, if not weeks, before they become, another swat on the bingo card for 2020.
It's interesting because I know, and Nav's probably like, man, I knew I shouldn't have put these guys together. They won't stop.
No, man. No worries. We might not have time for the other topics, so we can keep this one going.
Yeah. But I gotta go back to the whole. I love what you're doing, Nav, with New Theory Radio. Thank you for this. This is so totally inspiring. This conversation. I love this stuff, Jay. I'm feeling your vibes, man, and like I hope we can connect after this and talk and learn more about what you're doing. It's better to be right than rushed, though. I love that because and it's something I've always felt in my gut. But I just don't think that we as people can get out of our own way sometimes in order to take that quote to be what it is. And that impacts a lot of people, man. Like it impacts a lot of people on any given day. It's impacted me. It's probably impacted you guys at some point. Where you just can't get out of your own way to like make the decision that probably should be made. Because what it does is it says, oh man, if we don't launch Quibi now, we put all this money together and these people are not going to be happy. We got to go out the gate. Doesn't matter if the whole world's crumbling. No, just let's go. Like we got the content, we've got, so, and again, I'm not dogging Quibi, I'm not doing that. We're talking about a case study, a real live one. But it's better to be right than rush. I don't think that oftentimes people are patient enough for that. And in rushing, things happen, missteps happen. And again, to your point, Jay, it's all about timing. So this could have been the right time for them had something else happened or whatever. But timing is everything, I guess. You just got to throw it and see what happens.
Yep, you're right.
The other point I wanted to bring up, because both of you have produced, well, Jay, you are in the content game. Jesse, you've produced content for a major network. I forgot who brought up. I think it was probably you, Jay, when you were talking originally about Quibi, the free trial.
Yeah.
Do you both still believe in the free trial?
Nope.
Jay, why not?
Because you reduce and, if not eliminate, your value right off the bat. I'm worth $1 million, but I will buy you dinner for the first 10 times I see you. And on time 11, we know he's got the money for the food. Let's see if we can get another free month. Or, let me speak to your manager about another free 3-month trial. You cannot come back from zero. You just can't. Now, it'd be different if it was sign up for a year and your first X number of months are free. You add the value in that way. Or, sign up for 12 months and for months 13, 14, and 15, we'll cover them, right? Get your money up front loaded, kind of like big sports contracts, right? Like, that $300 million deal that, was it Rodriguez or Derek Jeter, whoever I got from the Rangers, right? Like, if you look at the first 3 years and like almost all the money was paid out because of the whole depreciation thing. So when you're launching something new and you're decreasing, if not eliminating your value, and you're not gaining any kind of income, of course you're not going to be there come month 4 because you haven't collected anything.
Yeah, it's interesting. The free trial. I think I guess my first question is, what is the goal?
Mm-hmm. Probably retention, right?
No, I get it. Like, and you know, the goal is to widen the gate, bring in as many people as you can, and pray that they're hooked more than ever to the wonderful shows and content you've got. So I look at it and I go, capacity, people's capacity for content and for things they like. I look at it in terms of building audience. Like, you've got people who are hard, like big time influencers who've been building up their audiences on YouTube or whatever platform for years and years and years. They get a show or their podcast gets purchased and put on a streaming platform.
Yeah.
You're going to follow that guy. You're going to follow Joe, right?
Joe Rogan, what up?
Yeah. You know what I mean? So I'm thinking about it in terms of like, you're already like, you're fighting for eyeballs, putting it out free and saying, yeah, they're going to come in here and man, they're going to love this Chrissy Teigen show, or they're going to love this thing with Kevin Hart or whatever. Personally, I just think people at this time too are kind of over the celeb content thing. Like, I think we kind of want to see some people that look like us, who show us that like maybe there's some semblance of reality going on, and that I can see Jay, you know, build up his platform and like excel and I can be with a show like as it grows, and then when it goes to a bigger platform, I'm like, oh shoot, man, I was watching this when he was doing it in his garage. And, you know what I mean? So yeah, to that point, like, is the model working the same way it used to when there were less things to actually consume? That's what that's what I would think about it.
And part of the problem is if you throw 1,000-foot net out in the middle of the ocean, sure, you'll get some fish, but you're going to get garbage and bottles and fishing rods, and you won't get everything that you want, right? So go after the right people as opposed to a volume of people.
Yeah.
Which is why that farm league type thing, you know, I'm sure some of them are doing it. But really strategically, it would be cool, you know, to have like different divisions of development in terms of like, because to your point, Jay, everyone is doing something now, creating something. And within that are some real seeds of greatness. So, you know, there should be a scout out there, just like back in the day in the music industry, where like guys were out in the streets looking for guys who could rap or who could sing. Like, they were looking for talent. They were going to the little clubs and they were seeing things and looking. And I think like in the content game, no matter who you are, you should be looking at people who potentially might need your platform to develop. Like, so, you know, Jay, even like there's people in Mississauga who are looking for connections, people in Brampton who are looking for connections. How do you build with them? And, you know, because again, people, I think now more than ever, kind of want to watch people that kind of are like achievable, real.
Yeah, people want to look in a mirror.
Yeah. That's a good segue. One story that came out this week was apparently we're getting a Wonder Years reboot, and for all of my young listeners, the Wonder Years was a popular '80s show, and I actually remember it. And again, I hope you do too, and I'm sure Jesse and Jay, you both have remembered this show as well. But they're going to be rebooting it, and the version's actually going to be focusing on a black family in 1960s Alabama. Definitely a very important perspective, especially when you look at all of the anti-black racism issues that are coming up right now and the conversations that we're having around representation, around race, around diversity. But to me, when I look at this topic, where my head kind of goes is it worth going backwards to tell different perspectives, or should we maybe focus on more original content and maybe a more original storytelling? And Jay, maybe we'll begin with you. When you heard about this reboot, what were your thoughts?
I think it's a great idea. Yes, there are issues that seem insurmountable today, but they're stemmed in what happened yesterday, right? So if yesterday's world wasn't corrected, we wouldn't have the issues we have today. So I think it's a great idea to have this move forward. Some of my concerns with a lot of the reboots, and there's just been so many of them from TV shows and movies to cover songs. If it's not truly factually representative of what it was like for a colored family to live in Alabama in the 60s, it's not worth doing. Mm-hmm. Right? Yes, you might get that PG-17 or the whatever the highest, most severe rating is for a TV show. Like, it may not air until after 10 o'clock, or it may only be online, or whatever it is. But if you can't tell that story the way it actually happened, then you're wasting everybody's time. And you'll get those influential people that will say, oh, I saw on the Wonder Years reboot that it really wasn't that bad, which pedals us back another X number of 10, 20, 30, hundreds of years, because now you're just sugarcoating what really happened for ratings and for money. But it should definitely be done right. Again, I said it before, the whole right of a rush, right? If it takes 3 years to come to a screen in your living room, in your office, so be it. Just have the story told the right way and the way it actually happened.
What's great about this reboot is it actually looks like Lee Daniels, who's a very prominent director, actually the director of Empire. He's going to get involved, and I think there's definitely some confidence there. But to your point, Jay, if the story is not going to be reflective of that time period and what a black family would be experiencing in Alabama at that time, for sure, like, by all means, I think a show like this shouldn't move forward. Jesse, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I have a few thoughts on this. So first of all, like, the Wonder Years, love that show.
Yeah,
show was great, and the whole reboot thing. I mean, personally, I just think sometimes things should remain great and stay great. And nostalgia is a beautiful thing, right? Remembering back to and how that felt. And I also think we're in a time now where a lot of things are going to get pushed through and greenlit because of the energy and what's happening in the world.
Yeah.
Specifically in North America, what's going on in terms of race relations and things like that. So you're going to have networks and things that are almost going to try to, and I equate it to what happened with social media. Because I think you guys remember a month ago when stuff really hit the fan and social media was all ablaze and the internet was all ablaze about Black lives and the murder of George Floyd, and then everyone really having to. There was like a lot of charged language, a lot of charged energy. Everybody felt like they had to say something.
Yeah.
Which, just kind of like an aside here, I thought was a bit ridiculous. In terms of, I don't need everyone to just start talking for the sake of talking, to take a position on something that they might not actually have worked out internally on how they feel about it or how they want to convey. But again, I digress. With this, I think, you had a lot of that energy come out and people were feeling like, man, I almost have to make up for all the time where I wasn't awake that this was happening. So then everyone's stories for like 100 stories, right? Or like, here are all the Black businesses you can go eat at. Here's all this stuff. Like, I'd love to ask everyone, how many of those restaurants have you been to? How many have you called for delivery this week? Like, okay, you're telling me I can go and I've been to them, you know what I mean? But like, how? And I feel like a lot of people were really just trying to kind of like make up for its lost time. So what I think is going to happen now too is the gates are going to be open to, okay, we got to put more stories out there that are representative. And so reboots are going to come and maybe it's going to be a great show. I just think that it's important that where we go forward now in terms of content is reflective of kind of like not just where we've been, but where we actually need to be.
Yeah.
Educationally, right? How are shows and content pieces coming out now that are not necessarily just black for black's sake, but what are the stories we're telling here? And where are we going? Where do we need to be? And so that's kind of where my head is at. Is this show going to do well? Lee Daniels is he's killing it, right? Empire was a big success. You know, and it talked about a lot of things in that show in a modernized way, which I think is kind of like what made it hit too. But timing, again, to your point, Jay, is everything. But that's kind of where my head's at now, is like, now that we are all, we're kind of seeing things through a similar lens, no matter what race we're a part of. But what are we going to do with that in terms of the content? Who are we going to engage with? What are the faces that are telling stories, and how are they being told? Is kind of where I'm at. So will this do it? Sure. Maybe. I don't know. I guess we'll see. But I'm also really interested in like where we're going and what the dialogue around that is, and who we're engaging from this time to talk about, you know, with all cultures, about kind of where we need to be, because it involves all of us at the end of the day in order for it to be where it needs to be.
No, I totally agree. And the one thing that I find with reboots, and I think this one in particular will probably face the same type of scrutiny, is whenever something gets rebooted, it always gets compared to the original. And
always,
when you think about the Wonder Years to me, it was a very kind of lighthearted show. Again, I'll have to revisit some episodes to see if they really touched on anything super deep, but it was very much like a coming of age type of story. You change that narrative to focus more on, you know, Southern racism for that's being experienced by a black family living in the 1960s. Does it almost change the tone of the show? Because if you go with the lighthearted tone, it just, to Jay's point, it doesn't really make any sense. But then if you change the tone, it diverts from what the show was about previously. It opens it up to being scrutinized. So it's almost like this fine line that
you might not even win. Like, can you win?
It's tough to win. Yeah.
Can you win? I think is the question. And again, that's the question that, you know, is in my head, is like, do we, because of where we are, do we need a black Wonder Years? Or do we need the right type of black show?
Yeah.
Like, that's kind of where I'm at in terms of content. Like, does it need to be out because it's, well, yeah, Wonder Years was a hit. We need more content from certain space. Let's do that. Like, it's like we talked about, you know, Nav on Park in relations to now every organization needs to figure out and find a almost like some consultancy to help them through this dialogue, right?
Yeah.
Which ones are the right ones? Is it just I need to just find a black consultant to help me through this black issue? Or do I need the right black consultant who understands the landscape of this issue? Same thing. South Asian, same thing. Asian, same thing. Like, it's really not just about I need this. And so that's kind of where my head goes. I'm not saying the show's not going to do well, but it's all about, like, what are the types of conversations we need to be having now, and who are the people that need to be having them? That's always going to be the big question.
I think, Jay, you want to chime in?
Going back to the first segment, so it's a little like the Quibi thing, right? Like, timing is everything, and Quibi didn't execute very well out of the gate. And, you know, I legitimately worry that if this moves forward to production and the first episode doesn't meet certain standards of accuracy, or is it, like one of you guys were saying, is is it too close to the old Wonder Years? Is it too far away? Is there, there's no surefire way to make sure the show will succeed. Mm-hmm. And I think if I was in charge of it, I would strive for the accuracy and, go into it knowing that you're going to have some people who completely disagree and we're going to try and get it pulled before it even comes on air. But I
don't think they've even done a pilot yet, right? Like,
no, it's
just early days.
Yeah, it got greenlit. It says it could be making its way back to ABC, the network, as soon as 2021. So it looks like they want to move quick, but we probably know why.
yeah. Right. You know what I mean? And you know what's interesting? It's hard to tell where things are going to go right now.
Exactly.
So for me, if you're thinking the shoot schedule and far out, look how the world changed in 4 months. Mm-hmm. Things that were planned in January or December, forget about it. Mm-hmm. It's almost so, that just brings up a whole other thing to me is how should content be produced?
Mm-hmm.
Carefully and honestly.
Yeah, you know what I mean?
And safely.
Yeah, to make sure that it can move with the world. Because you might come out with something and shoot something, and then 6 months later something happens that you just got to scrap it because you can't put it out. That has happened to a lot of people throughout this time. So it's almost like those long lead shoot times, you just kind of wonder if that game is going to change now too.
The interesting thing about this reboot is, and Jay, to your point, and Jesse, you kind of alluded to this as well. There's been obviously a lot of conversation around making sure that if they do go down this route, they do it right. It sounds like it will be a comedy because they've hired a couple of comedy writers. One in particular, Saladin K. Patterson, used to work on the Bertie Mac show and Frasier. And again, considering what we're currently facing and the fact that they do want to rush the show to 2021, it kind of makes you think of whether or not a comedic look at a family in 1960s Alabama would be suitable. Jay, what are your thoughts?
Oh man, I'll be very quick and concise with this.
No worries.
That is a ridiculously bad idea.
Sorry, I just saw it right now as I was reading it.
Tell us how you really feel, Jay.
Even in January, this would be a stupid idea, and it is amplified that much more today, right? I thought Everybody Hates Chris, that show about Chris Rock's childhood, that was kind of funny, right? Because
I love that show, man. I was like, Jay, what are you going to say about that show?
Yeah, because a lot of that stuff happened to us. We all kind of grew up in the same area, right? Afraid of our parents.
And it was a Wonder Years style show. I remember when it first came out, Chris Rock had said, this is my version of the Wonder Years, because he was narrating it, right?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And that's absolutely appropriate because, he's a comedian. That's what he does. But he's still balancing seriousness as well as the humor. But, man, there is nothing funny about what happened for the last 400 years to black people. Full stop, period. No smile, no laugh, no asterisks. That's it. Mm-hmm. And I realize there's not one Facebook post, there's not a book, there's not a podcast, there's not one thing that everybody can read which will make them understand what's happened to black people. And having multiple pieces of the puzzle, read this, talk to this person, see if you can get as much information to catalog together. So we're not asking you, Jay Kana, to fix it by yourself. Mm-hmm. We're asking you to be educated, to understand and be part of a movement to make everybody equal. And I think if you're dropping the comedy card,
it may not be suitable in a year, right? It's still maybe...
It's never going to be suitable. There is nothing funny about Razor.
Well, I mean, it's an interesting point, Jay, because all the comedians, the biggest ones, Bertie Mac, Chris Rock, Eddie Murphy, I mean, all of those guys have made race incredibly funny.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a whole almost kind of like therapeutic way about laughing at the absurdities of life. That's what comedy is kind of based out of. So I guess I hear your point too. There's nothing funny about the fact that we continue to live this way as people. Who knows where they're going to go with the scripts and how they're going to build it out.
Right.
You would think that, like, Lee Daniels being on the project and Fred Savage being, executive producer, staying on it, making sure that I think they're going to really try to make this thing work. And you brought up Everybody Loves Chris. Love that show. Like it was the version of the Wonder Years, and it worked. It worked really well, right? So let's see what's going on. I think the first thing that I thought was like, man, Wonder Years was great. Let Wonder Years be Wonder Years and just come out with something different, but again, who knows why that happened and who knows what meetings led to this thing? Because really, in Hollywood, like, it's discussions that then, and who knows what seed of insight led them to connect with Fred and go, hey, maybe, Lee, and like all that stuff that manifested this point. There was probably good reason for them to try to make something happen on that. And so, let's see what happens, I guess, is kind of where I'm at. But the bigger conversation is there's going to be a door open for more content of color, period.
Yeah,
and
that's true.
I think it's important that whatever color is or race or nationality is being focused on, that it's not just for sake of getting as much in there now because we didn't do it forever. It's more about what are the right stories that we should be telling and how should we be telling them?
Yeah, exactly.
So one thing I'll commit here on the show is that when the first episode gets released, I'm going to bring both of you on and we're going to review it.
Can we do it live?
We'll do it live, yes.
Yeah, let's we'll watch. We'll have it on.
We'll have a watch along, yeah.
Yeah. I think you could do that like on House Party or something.
Yeah,
like
you
that.
can. Or there's like a couple of like Chrome extensions that you can do that on as well.
There you go.
We'll have to do it. But gentlemen, this has been an amazing episode. I had a lot of fun talking to the both of you. We'll do a quick roundtable just to kind of promote whatever you're working on or whatever you're doing. Jay, let's begin with you. What's going on in modern Mississauga land?
I had to skip on my spring issue. Well, the global pandemic was to blame with that. But I am putting out my new summer issue. It's an interactive digital issue, which means not only can you see it online, because that's the only place you can see it, but within the magazine, there are clickable links embedded in the articles. There are videos embedded in the articles as well. So that's out in the end of July, and I've got a great YouTube page. My mom says it's great. So that's where you can catch all of my new car reviews. It's about 2 a week. So that's what's up with me.
Awesome. And then Jesse, you're doing a lot, man. You're currently live from the House of Kuumba. Tell us about what you're doing.
Yeah, listen, first of all, thanks so much for having me on. Jay, it's been great chopping it up with you. In the House of Kuumba space right now, if you go to the House of Kuumba on Instagram, you'll see a little bit more about it. Really excited about what we're doing in downtown Brampton in terms of this new space. Not only is it going to house the Jones & Jones group, which is comprised of Jones & Jones Productions on and 1081, but this space, as a creative, as a strategist, as a person that plays in kind of the marketing and branding space and content space, I wanted to really have a spot that could be transformational from a number of reasons and ways. And so not only are we agency by day, but we, can completely retrofit into a content studio from a photography, videography standpoint. Very small scale, hosted distance type scenarios. We're in a retail space. It's kind of studio-like right on street level. So, co-working, opportunities for creatives to connect. We play in the arts, entertainment, media, and business space. So, I'm really looking forward to launching workshops out of this space that help young people who are looking to kind of get a foot into the streams that we play in, led by experts in those fields. So there's a community angle along with, the work that we're doing, in the branding space and things like that. So yeah, House of Kuumba really just a wellness energy to it, and a whole thing around connectivity and making people, be able to kind of connect and build at the same time.
Awesome.
Cool.
Awesome. And
Now,
again,
thank you. Thanks for the host for inviting us now.
Hey.
But no, I appreciate it.
Great platform, Nav.
I'm gonna have to bring both of you guys back. We'll definitely review the Wonder Years.
Sounds good.
Awesome. We are going to take a quick commercial break here on New Theory Radio, and we'll be right back on News Talk Saga 960.
You are listening to New Theory Radio, NTR Spotlight.
And we are back here on New Theory Radio, here live on News Talk Saga 960 AM. My name is Nav Nanwa. I am your host, and this is the show where we theorize on arts and pop culture. And it is about that time for our weekly NTR Spotlight, where we like to profile an artist or an organization or someone who's truly pushing the arts and culture scene forward, not only within Peel, but within the world. And I'm truly honored to be joined by our Spotlight this week. He is an award-winning trumpet and piano player, currently based in New York City, but from Mississauga. He is noted for the sparkling clarity of his trumpet solos, as he's performed with over half a dozen orchestras in his career. These include the likes of the Toronto Symphony and Toronto Youth Symphony Orchestras, the Mississauga Symphony and Mississauga Youth Orchestras, the Halton Symphony Youth Orchestra, as well as the Juilliard Orchestra. And he's currently a student, actually, at the Juilliard School, the prestigious Juilliard School in New York City. And we're so honored to have him here on NTR as our NTR Spotlight for this week. It is William Leathers. William, thanks so much for making the time for us, man.
Thanks for having me here. Appreciate it.
Dude, your story is one that's truly phenomenal. You are a musical prodigy, but I have to ask you, the fact that we're stuck indoors and we're enduring the quarantine, how has all of this been for you when it comes to not only being a student at the Juilliard School, but also continually kind of working on your craft right now?
Well, my year at the Juilliard School kind of abruptly ended. 1 minute I was playing... Back in February, I played a principal trumpet on Mahler's Fifth Symphony at Carnegie Hall. And then a few days later, we go on spring break. And during spring break, while I'm back home, all Juilliard students get an email saying, the semester's done because of the coronavirus. So everyone's got to get their stuff out of the dorm and get out. So me and the family, we take a round trip to New York and back in the car, get all my stuff. We did that on March 14th. So I've pretty much been home since then. School continued online, and so it's been very, very different doing school online rather than in person. And it's music school too. So the academics, it's like it wasn't all that different. It's just that we were all in different rooms, but it made the experience very different for private lessons. My private teacher is Chris Martin, principal trumpet in the New York Philharmonic, and in private lessons, we kind of just started talking a lot more than we would normally play, since trumpets don't really sound too good over Zoom. So basically, I would just try to get as much knowledge as I possibly could, and kind of continue to learn the trumpet that way. And so we weren't able to do ensemble work, obviously, because that is a nightmare over Zoom as well. So what a lot of people have been doing, a lot of musicians in general, but some Juilliard students have been putting together some some like quarantine videos where they record, they pick a piece to play or they arrange a piece, and we record our parts individually and put them all together. Someone who's a good enough sound engineer will put it all together. I've done a couple projects. I did one with trumpet students and faculty. We put together a piece for 5 trumpets, except we did it with 12 trumpets to make it more interesting.
Wow, crazy.
And I played a 4th trumpet part in someone's big band piece, and I've been playing different composers' music. Composers at Juilliard, composition students at Juilliard. I've been playing their music. I did my own I also did my own version of O Canada. Well, I made this version of O Canada a few years ago, and then I decided to do a video this year for the class of 2020, since a lot of Canadian students won't really have a real graduation ceremony. So I did one to spice up their virtual graduation ceremony. So that's pretty much how it's been for me. I've mostly been staying home, practicing and stuff like that, so that's pretty much how the last few months have been.
I want to take it all the way back. Let's talk about your upbringing in Mississauga. I'd read when I was doing research for this interview, I'd read that one of your biggest influences growing up was your father. How did he introduce you to music at an early age?
Well, my first instrument was actually the piano. So the piano came before the trumpet, and so my dad comes into it a little bit after I started the piano. So basically, I saw there's a cartoon I used to watch, Oswald. It's a big blue octopus that played the piano and walked his little weenie dog everywhere. And so I saw that octopus playing the piano, and I begged my mom for 6 months to let me play the piano. So eventually she got me some lessons, and I learned a little bit, and around the same time, probably just like a couple months after, I played music for the first time with my dad. My dad's a trumpet player, commercial jazz trumpet player. Amazing. So I think the very first thing we played together was O Canada, and my mom got that on camera too. So I don't know where that video is right now, but she has it on camera. And so I got into I also wanted to play trumpet for a while. Like shortly after that, I was talking to my dad about playing the trumpet, and so he basically told me it would be best to start the trumpet when I have my 4 front adult teeth in. So like the top 2 and the bottom 2. It makes it a little bit easier for the trumpet embouchure, like what the muscles you're using with your face, to work. So you got something to press the metal on that's sturdy. And so he got me started off with the mouthpiece when I was 6, because I had those teeth in by then. And he got me a trumpet for Christmas when I was 7, and that's basically when the work started. And we like to practice together still. We've done that all throughout, and we don't get to play together often in public, because he's usually doing his gigs, and I'm usually practicing and doing my thing. And now I'm in regular circumstances, and I'm away at school, so it happens way less often now. So that's basically it.
What's actually fantastic about your story is, I believe at age 12, because of your trumpet playing, you were actually the youngest trumpeter to be accepted into the Toronto Symphony Youth and Halton Mississauga Youth Orchestras. How was that for you at such a young age, getting to be a part of such an important ensemble, or both ensembles, when it comes to both the Toronto Symphony Youth as well as the Halton Mississauga Youth Orchestras?
Well, it was really special to me. My music teacher from elementary school, he's the one, Chris Shigola, and he ended up being my trumpet teacher from 12 years old. When I was, he used to be principal trumpet of the Guelph Symphony Orchestra, and so I think when I was 11 or 12, he brought me out to a dress rehearsal for I think they were playing the Messiah. This would have been in December. That's when everyone does the Messiah, and so he had me sit like right beside him in the orchestra, and I was pretty much familiar with every instrument I saw on stage except for probably the bassoon. I learned what a bassoon was pretty quick, and so So basically, I went home and told my mom that I was interested in orchestral music, and she got me booked to do these auditions with the Toronto Symphony Youth Orchestra and the Halton Mississauga Youth Orchestra. And so I got into both, and I just kind of felt like the preparation I did, I thought I had a good chance at getting in, just because I was used to being rewarded for hard work, and I worked really hard at that. And so once I got into those groups and started playing with them, it was a whole lot of fun. It felt like a team effort, and I can play loud all the time and stuff like that. And I was meeting really new, interesting people, a lot of cool people. So and it really taught me a whole lot. It taught me about music and teamwork and stuff like that. And like really how to play with people, like kind of similar to the stuff I was talking about, like how do you sound like a team, like that type of thing. It really taught me a whole lot about that.
William, how have mentors shaped your abilities and skills? You mentioned your trumpet teacher. You mentioned even the professor that you have at Juilliard. How have mentors really shaped your abilities?
Well, the first one definitely is my dad. He taught me the first basic skills of trumpet playing and beyond. A lot of things that have stuck with me is rest as much as you play. Because that's the number one way to not get injured when you're practicing the trumpet, because you got metal on your face all the time, and you have very, very small muscles contracting and relaxing all the time. So his advice to me was rest as much as you play, and he basically taught me how to put the mouthpiece in the right place to lead me away from any other injuries that could arise from the mouthpiece not being in a good place. And so and he just taught me so much about the trumpet. And same with my elementary school teacher, Chris Shigola, who became my trumpet teacher when I was 12, up until I got into Juilliard at 17. Mm-hmm. And so when I was 12, I met Wynton Marsalis for the first time, classical and jazz trumpet legend, phenomenal musician, and a really great, humble man as well. My teacher, Chris Shigola, at the time, he took me to a Jazz and Lincoln Center Orchestra with Wynton Marsalis concert. Mm-hmm. And so he took me backstage because him and Wynton are friends. And so we met up with Wynton back there. He was on his way out. He had his coat on and his horn over his shoulder. And so Chris said, this is the guy I've been talking about. And so Wynton said, all right, let's go back to the dressing room real quick. And so I played for him, and he basically gave me like a 20, 30-minute lesson.
Wow.
And he gave me all sorts of advice that day. And I got to meet up with him on several occasions in Toronto, once in Hamilton as well. He played at a venue in Hamilton. When I got to talk to him again at 16, one of the biggest things he told me, one of the biggest things he's ever told me, which is you got to use your intelligence to create your own path in life. That's what all of the legends and everything do, because you can't really follow anyone else's path, or else you can't just follow this musician's path, or else people are just going to listen to that musician. You have to be your own individual and be yourself and do it your own way and polish on what you got in order to be a real individual artist that way. And so my private teacher now, Chris Martin, has been a huge mentor to me as well, with just really teaching me more of the nuts and bolts of classical trumpet playing, and he's really helping me prove artistically as well. And Ray Mace, chair of brass at the Juilliard School, he's really been helping me out as well. He's a phenomenal musician. He's a legendary trumpet player of the American Brass Quintet and the New York City Ballet. So he knows a lot about making good music. So he's really been a whole lot of help to me too. And Mark Gould as well, former principal trumpet in the Met Opera as well.
It's very like as I'm hearing you talk, it's very like there's a lot of parallels to sports, right? Like, and I think what's awesome is um the advice that your dad gave you, or the inferences that you made earlier about teamwork in an orchestra.
Right.
It to me, it goes to show that this what you're doing right now at the Juilliard, and the way you approach the trumpet is that of a tier one athlete when it comes to a sport that they're playing.
Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah.
How did you get into that mindset, especially with you being so young? I find that to be the most fascinating part about your journey. Is as I speak to you, you're definitely. I would say, I don't want no one to take this offensively, you're definitely a lot more mature for your age in regards to your outlook at life. Like, do you get that a lot?
Yeah, I get that a lot, and I think it's mainly because my mom has been my main motivator throughout my life.
Awesome.
And you know, she's just told me so many motivating things throughout my childhood, and she even sent me off to when I was first starting out at before I went off to Juilliard. She sent me there with like basically a summary of everything she's ever told me. If you want, I could read a little bit of that.
No, please do. That'd be great.
Yeah, so the key to living life on a new level is goal setting. Goal setting is what separates successful people from unsuccessful people. If you do not know where you are heading, you will just wander around aimlessly living a life of mediocrity. People with goals succeed because they know where they are going. Ask yourself if what you're doing today is getting closer to where you want to be tomorrow. Focus on your goal. Don't look in any other direction. Set daily, monthly, and long-term goals and dreams. Don't ever be afraid to dream too big. Nothing is impossible if you believe in yourself. A goal is a dream with a deadline. Set your goals, make the plans, get to work, stick to it. Reach your goals. The tragedy of life doesn't lie in not reaching your goal. The tragedy lies in having no goals to reach. A dream written down with a date becomes a goal. A goal broken down into steps becomes a plan. A plan backed by action makes your dreams come true. Discipline is the bridge between goals and accomplishment. Goals help you stay focused on where you want to go in life. Don't be the majority of people who have no goals in their life. Write down your goals and believe in yourself, and take daily consistent action, because there are no limits to what you can achieve once you get truly focused on success.
Wow. And your mom gave you all that?
Yeah, she gave me all that. She's told me that, and she's told me all this stuff over and over throughout my life until it was ingrained in my brain, so I could be, you know, the confident person I am today, with the growth mindset to keep moving forward in every possible way, and keep learning and keep growing as a musician and a human being.
That's amazing, man. And kudos to both your parents for raising you like that, because again, you probably get this a lot based on the people you encounter, whether it be, you know, in New York City or even locally in Mississauga, where people are very quick to give up on a dream because they may feel like there's no way I can make an income from it, or there's no way that I can get to a certain level. But it sounds like you had a strong support system around you. If you could provide any piece of advice to anyone that's feeling mentally stuck right now, or is maybe becoming their own worst enemy and is not truly believing into their skills, what would that be?
Honestly, I think the best thing I could tell anyone right now is that you know, because right now it's extremely easy to get unmotivated, you know, so which isn't a huge problem. You just got to know how to get yourself out of that. So my advice would be you need to set a long-term goal. You know, it can be, what do you want to be able to do once quarantine is over, or what do you want to be able to do at the end of the day? Like what's your big dream? So it can be one of those two things, or whatever else. So you need to set a long-term goal, and you need to set short-term goals before that. So if you want to be able to, if you want to be the most amazing whatever by the time quarantine is done, then maybe set weekly goals, bi-weekly goals, and those goals you need to make sure that those goals have a legitimate path towards that long-term goal.
one of the goals that you made for yourself was to get into the prestigious Juilliard school, and you were only the fourth Canadian trumpet player to be accepted. Which again, big congrats
to be to attend. There have actually been a lot of Canadian trumpet players accepted, but because of different issues like finances and stuff, a lot of them haven't been able to go. So that was almost the issue for me, but fortunately, a lot of Canadian people and people all around the world really stepped up and donated to me and helped me get through my first 2 years.
And that's what I wanted to talk to you about. And again, apologies for that. So yeah, you were to attend, which again is an amazing feat considering how prestigious Juilliard is to not just the United States but to the world. But you've also been a mainstay in the Mississauga community. You've played very important gigs here in Canada. And what I love about your story, man, is as soon as a word got out that you got accepted and people started to realize, hey, this is a really prestigious program, but it's going to cost an arm and a leg to go. There was huge community support behind you into making this dream of yours a reality. What did that mean to you?
It really meant the world to me, having it felt like having an entire country behind my back, because it was mostly Canadians supporting me and donating to me, but it was people all around the world, just having so many people really support me and believe in me. I'll just be forever grateful for it,
Mm-hmm. William, you actually received the prestigious Kovner Scholarship. Do you want to maybe get into more details as to what that's about?
Yeah, for sure. So on June 3rd, I got an email from Juilliard saying that I'd been named as a Kovner Fellow, which means I had received a Kovner Fellowship that covers everything: tuition, room and board, books. There's some travel expenses in there too that they cover. It's pretty much everything. And so I'd gotten that email right after I'd gotten out of the shower. So I ran out of the bathroom with a towel right in front of me. And so I told everyone in the house, And I'm not the most dramatic person either, but that's kind of the first time I've ever really done something like that. So
hey man, for the right manner.
Sorry, what was that?
No, I'm saying I feel like you handled it the right way. Like when someone's offering to pay for your prestigious education in full and be able to cover a lot of your key expenses, hey man, clothes can wait.
Oh yeah, for sure. They gotta wait. And the thing that's really touched me most about receiving the Kovner Fellowship is that I realized I wouldn't be in a position to get it if it weren't for the people who donated to my GoFundMe campaign back when I was trying to make it through my first 2 years. So without the people of Canada and people all around the world supporting me and donating, I wouldn't have gotten through my first 2 years, and I would have been in the position to get a Kovner Fellowship for the rest of my degree. So I'll forever be grateful for that.
Mm-hmm. No, and I think it's awesome, man. Like it truly is in regards to people really believing in what you bring to the table and just how far your career can go. And it's no secret, you've played a lot of prestigious events. You've also played a lot of prestigious venues. You mentioned Carnegie Hall earlier. You've also played the Lincoln Center. In your career thus far, what's been the biggest highlight?
I think it's definitely the Carnegie Hall one that I got selected to play principal trumpet in the Juilliard Orchestra in Mahler's Fifth Symphony at Carnegie Hall. That concert was back in February, and unfortunately that ended up being the last concert of the Juilliard Orchestra season due to the pandemic. And so, but that's one of the most amazing concerts I've ever participated in. Mahler's Fifth Symphony has that little 12-bar solo for the first trumpet at the beginning, and then the whole orchestra comes in at bar 13.
Wow.
And so I think I gave you that clip as well.
Yeah.
But basically you got to be extremely prepared for that piece. There are There are a bunch of licks in there for the first trumpet part that are very, very exposed, and you pretty much just got to be ready for them. Prepared to play that solo 10 times in a row in my practice room. That'll really help me just play it the way I want to automatically. I almost went into a trance when I played it on stage. Basically my thought when I went out there was just get the first note and I'm gonna be fine. I'm prepared for this. And so basically, as soon as I got the first few notes out, the rest of it was just kind of automatic. The technique and the musicality just kind of worked for me. And the orchestra joined me after that, and it was just a whole lot of fun.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. No, dude, that's big time, right? Carnegie Hall is one of the most prestigious venues in the world, and the fact that you got to play it and you got to, even with the piece that you played, you got to be a part of just having almost the spotlight on you as a solo is just phenomenal. Where do you want to see yourself in the future?
Some of my biggest goals, I want to be principal trumpet in a major orchestra somewhere. I also want to be a classical soloist along with a soloist of many different genres that I can come up with and play and have fun with. And so pretty much anything else. Those are like the two big goals for me. And anything else that I'm able to do that adds to my artistry and that I could just have fun with musically, I'd like to do as well. Just and lastly, I think just just to keep improving as a musician and as a human being. That's one of my big goals as well. So that's pretty much it.
Awesome. Well, but thank you so much for joining us here on New Theory Radio again. You got the whole community behind you, and you're definitely destined for even greater things. Even looking at your resume right now, it's going to be phenomenal to see where you go even further, considering everything you've accomplished thus far. And if anybody wants to keep track on what William Leathers is doing, whether it be on social or they want to peep some of your music or compositions, or they just want to see what you're up to, what's the best way to connect?
I'm on Instagram, Leathersboy, Leathers. That's my last name, Boy. So that's my username for that. And I got Twitter too. I barely use it. I'm on Facebook if you can find me there. So that's pretty much where you can find me. Whenever the pandemic ends, I'll be and if I'm in town here, I'll be performing around the Toronto area. And I'll try to put out on my social media when I'm performing in New York as well, whenever we start up with that again.
Excellent. Yeah, hopefully that's soon, man. With things opening up, hopefully you'll be able to get back out there in a safe manner and be able to continue. Because
sure. Everyone misses live music, all the musicians and the people.
seriously, and hopefully before you go back to New York, we'll be able to see you in action, not just in Mississauga, but everywhere else within the GTA. So thanks again for joining us here on NTR. We are going to take a quick commercial break, and then we're going to have more New Theory Radio in just a few moments.
You are listening to New Theory Radio.
And we are back here on New Theory Radio, here live on News Talk Saga 960 AM, the show where we theorize on arts and pop culture. My name is Nav Nanwa. I am your host. And it was announced this week that the city of Brampton will be providing a COVID-19 relief fund for artists and arts organizations. It's no secret that the arts and culture sector plays a key role to the city of Brampton when it comes to contributing to the social, cultural, and economic health of the Flower City. And especially during the last few months, as we've been experiencing this pandemic, artists and arts organizations are particularly vulnerable because of these impacts, and there's been an unprecedented loss of revenue caused by the cancellation of performances, exhibitions, productions, community events, and more. And here with me to talk about this COVID-19 relief fund for artists and arts organizations, I have the Strategic Projects Coordinator for the Cultural Office at the City of Brampton. Katie Belshaw is joining me here on New Theory Radio. Katie, thanks so much for making the time for us.
Hello, thank you for having me. I'm happy to be here.
Big news coming out from the city this week when it comes to the COVID-19 relief fund. And it's no secret that the city of Brampton over the last few years has been investing a lot of energy and a lot of funds now to the arts and culture scene within the city. How did this all come about?
Yeah, well, I think that as city staff, and city council in general, we recognize the importance of the arts sector, especially in growing our local economy and in supporting our community. And when COVID-19 hit, it hit very hard on the arts sector. And we see that in Brampton, we see that across Canada, in cities everywhere. And I think we know that it's going to be one of the sectors that will take a long time to come back, and we'll have to figure out what this new normal looks like. So recognizing that a lot of arts organizations and artists have lost a significant amount of revenue and funding and just opportunities to go out and perform gigs, to do shows, to be in person, which is how so much art gets made and is practiced. We wanted to make sure that the arts sector would be able to continue to be resilient and bounce back. So we wanted to be able to offer a fund that would be available for artists and arts organizations to access to sort of offset some of their lost revenue that was happening through COVID, and to have that happen right away in 2020 and not to have to wait for 2021 because we're in this reality right now.
Yeah, and I think it's a fantastic initiative. And I remember just being on one of the teletown halls that Mayor Patrick Brown held with members of council, I believe a month or so ago. And yeah, I know that there was some inklings that this was that at least council and at least the city was thinking about support for the arts, because even going as far back as when the cultural master plan came into play, it just seems that over the last 5 years, the city of Brampton has been really looking at arts and culture as being something that they should invest in, especially when you look at economic development goals of the city, and even just the fact that Brampton, there's a huge tourism focus as well. When it came down to looking at what was available and looking at ways that the support could come to life, was there anything that stood out in particular to you that you felt or the city felt, hey, we really need to focus in on this because we've been getting some feedback that it is looking a little bleak?
Yeah, well, I think you're right that the town hall that was held sort of at the end of May was our opportunity to be able to ask and hear back from the arts sector in Brampton, to really hear what was needed from them and how the city could support the economic recovery strategy, not only in tourism, but also in the arts as well. And so through that town hall, we were able to ask some of those questions around what do you need? And of course, one of the main things that came back was funding, both for individual artists. We need funding right now. We can't wait for this. Like we're in a pretty dire situation. So I think for us, it was important to be able to make sure that money could get out the door quickly. Mm-hmm. So this fund, we took it to council in a report on, I think it was June 17th. And so the fund just opened July 9th. So it's been a really, really tight turnaround for us, but I think that's just speaks to the importance of just getting this money out the door and to not have it be necessarily a project-based fund, but just funding that's available to offset those lost expenses, to be able to ensure that organizations will continue to have capacity so that when we do come back and we have this new normal and we are able to gather, that these organizations will still be there and that these artists can still have a practice, because if they don't receive funding now, then who knows how they'll be able to continue to keep moving forward.
Especially when you think about, we're in the summer, usually Garden Square is rammed with something, right? Like you're talking, whether it be the concert series, whether it be festivals, whether it be the farmers market, which I know started up again recently. The Rose Theaters usually has an extensive program going on during this time. Even Gage Park, there's always something going on there. the summer months are usually when a lot of Brampton-based artists and organizations are thriving, and because the weather's nice, and downtown Brampton has become such a core for a lot of this, that like that being on that call a few months ago was just very eye-opening, because there was a lot of key players on that call who, quite frankly, a lot of their initiatives peak in the summer. So for them to not be able to experience the fruits of their labor because of COVID-19 was something that really spoke to me as being a participant about that. But just want to go into some of the details. So, for Brampton-based individual artists, that up to $1,000 in relief funds are available to them based on the application that they fill out. For Brampton-based charitable not-profit or arts organizations, up to $15,000 in relief funds is available. When the program was actually being put in place, how easy or how crucial was it for you to make this easy on the artist, and when it comes to the application process and being able to access this money on a pretty quick basis? Because it sounds like the actual process of getting it approved by council was expedited quite a bit.
Yeah, I think that was really what we wanted to center in developing this fund and putting it together, to make sure that the application wasn't onerous, that it was quick, that it could be evaluated in a pretty standard and quick way to get this money out the door. So if you go onto our website, you can just visit it at brampton.ca/artsrelief, and you'll be able to see there both application for individual artists and application for arts organizations. It's just a fillable PDF application form, so you can just access it right from the website. So you fill that in. I think both application forms are no more than 4 pages, so it's really standard. We ask you a little bit about your organization. We ask for documentation on some of the lost expenses that you have incurred, so you'll have to provide us with those. And sort of beyond that, and looking at asking for you to provide us with the impact of this fund and what it will mean for you and your organization or your arts practice. Those pieces of documentation are quite simple, and you send those over to us, and then there'll be a quick evaluation process, and we'll try and get that money out the door and into the hands of artists and arts organizations as quickly as we can.
Katie, coming out of this year, what's your hope for arts and culture in Brampton moving forward? Because you mentioned the new normal earlier. I think that's the term that we're all using to describe what we're all going through, and just how crucial it is to pivot and adapt. And last week I talked to Regan Hayward from Beaux Arts Brampton's about pivoting and just the impact it's had on the artist-led gallery. But when it comes to Culture Brampton and the work that you and the team are doing, which is absolutely phenomenal, what is your hope coming out of COVID that you would like to see happen with arts and culture and that sector within the city?
Well, I think what you're saying about the summer being such a vibrant time for these arts organizations, with things happening in Garden Square and Gage Park and all these festivals that happen, I hope that these organizations can continue to collaborate and work together to be able to find new modes of working and new ways of doing things. I think The Fold is a great example of that, how they took their festival online pretty early on when COVID hit. And so I think that there's a lot that organizations and artists in Brampton can learn from one another. I've been in a ton of different webinars and things like that, where there's been lots of really innovative practices. So I hope that although this time is very difficult and challenging, and we're all sitting at home, that we can continue to develop new ways of working together, and that we can invite new people in as well. I think there's going to be a lot of great work in terms of accessibility, thinking through things like that. Art for social justice and change as a political vehicle, I think that's also something that's really important. We have a number of professional development opportunities that we're hoping to be able to offer to the community in terms of supporting everyone in transitioning to a digital environment. The Brampton Entrepreneur Center is a great resource in that sense. And we just announced a new nonprofit learning series that's not specific to arts organizations, but I think there's going to be a lot of benefit for any organization in any sector to sort of take advantage of those opportunities to continue to learn and grow.
Excellent. Yeah, and I must say, I think, again, the Culture Office in the City of Brampton, and even a lot of the arts organizations, have done a great job in pivoting and really focusing in on content, because I think this is, to me, as someone who produces the show, but also curates a festival. I think right now, potentially coming out of this, you could see a renaissance in the way that people are thinking about bringing to life their events. I found that when you throw massive events out in the open, like a place like Garden Square, it's very easy to, I don't want to say this in a bad way, but it's very easy to kind of get used to that and kind of figure out, okay, that's what I have to work with. And I know what I need to bring to life, and really kind of focusing on the different artists that you want to profile. But now within COVID and using digital, I think it just pushes that envelope a bit further. So no, I commend you and the office for igniting a lot of that innovation, because I think that's going to be crucial moving forward. If any artists have any questions regarding the fund, or want to discuss maybe eligibility regarding the fund itself and just how the application works, what's the best way to connect with you in the office?
Yeah, so we're more than happy to answer questions. So please feel free to reach out. Whether or not, whatever the question is, you can reach us at arts_relief@brampton.ca. And that email address is listed on the website again. So the website, brampton.ca/artsrelief. So you can find all the info there. If you're a little bit confused or you have some questions, reach out to us. So the email arts_relief@brampton.ca. And then another great way to get in touch too is just through any of our social channels. So that's often where we first make our announcements. So if you want to send us a DM through @CultureBrampton on Instagram, Twitter, whatever, we're pretty responsive there as well. If you see something come up and you want to ask a question, we're always here.
Awesome. Well, Katie, thanks so much for joining us here on New Theory Radio. That is the COVID-19 Relief Fund for artists and arts organizations that's currently being available to the city of Brampton. If you are a Brampton artist, if you are a Brampton arts organization, definitely look into it. It's some really good relief that you can take advantage of during these tough times. We are going to take a quick commercial break, but then when we come back, we're going to have more New Theory Radio here on News Talk, Saga 960 AM.
You are listening to New Theory Radio. Theory Radio.
Welcome back to New Theory Radio, here live on News Talk, Saga 960 AM. My name is Nav Nanwa, I am your host, and this is the show where we theorize on arts and pop culture. Special thank you to our pop culture panel, Jesse Jones and Jay Kana, for joining us, as well. A big shout outs to our NTR Spotlight, the musical prodigy himself, William Leathers, for also stopping by here at NTR. And last but not least, special thanks to Katie Belshaw from the city of Brampton for coming on to talk about the COVID-19 Relief Fund for artists and art organizations. Go check that out. We'll have plenty of details available on our social feeds as well as our podcast description in case you are interested. This is a wrap for New Theory Radio, so thanks again for tuning in. If you want to connect with New Theory Radio, it is at New Theory Radio on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. If you want to connect with me, it is at Nav Nanwa across all social platforms. Special shout-outs to my little brother Amit Nanwa for doing our graphics. You can hit him up on Instagram at colorblindphotography_. Special shout-outs to the wizard himself, Dusty Loops. He is responsible for a lot of the instrumentals that you hear each and every week, including our theme song. Go check him out at Dusty Loops, as well as www.dustyloops.ca. And last but not least, do connect with our station at Saga 960 AM across all social platforms as well. This episode will be available on the Saga 960 AM website on Tuesday in podcast form, as well as Spotify and Apple Podcasts. That's a wrap for this week. Thank you again, and you will hear all of us next time. Peace.
Get ready to watch more of what you love with Xfinity X1, like live sports and more with the Xfinity Sports Zone. Looking for more streaming apps? They're all in one place. Xfinity X1 is the ultimate entertainment experience.
Click, call, or visit a store today. Restrictions apply. Not available in all areas.